January. Today we're going to be doing tissue paper art. So I'm going to show you how to transfer a quote to your canvas, and we're going to paint the canvas with wet tissue paper. So the supplies we need for this are a canvas. I have an 8x10 here that I got at Dollar Tree. It's just the flat kind of canvas. You could use the one that's stretched over the wood frame. You're going to need a quote. I got mine from Pinterest. I just typed in free printable quotes and printed this out. You could do your own on your computer with some kind of fancy font if you wanted to. We're going to need tissue paper. And you all know how I like Dollar Tree. Don't buy your tissue paper at Dollar Tree or Dollar General or any of the dollar stores. I bought this at Michael's. It was called Celebrate It brand. The other tissue papers do not bleed, or the ink does not transfer to our canvas. So you need a little more expensive tissue paper than the Dollar Tree brand. So the Celebrate It from Michael's is what I use for this project. You're also going to need a foam brush or a paintbrush or even a cotton ball to get your tissue paper wet. You're going to need a permanent marker to color in your quote, a pencil, or a pen. So we're going to start with our quote. So I'm turned mine over on the back side, and I'm taking a pencil and I'm shading in all the letters. I want to make sure I cover everything. You don't have to cover the whole page, but we're going to be transferring our outline of our quote, of our letters, to our canvas. So for those of you older people, we're basically making our own carbon paper. Back in the old days when we didn't have a copy machine, we used carbon paper. So the carbon transferred to the paper, and that's basically what we're going to do here. We're going to transfer the lead from the back of our quote to our canvas board. So you want to put a pretty heavy coat of your pencil lead on here. Like I said, you don't have to cover the whole page with pencil lead. And when I get this covered, I'm going to turn it over and center it on my canvas. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do with the pencil or pen. So I've got that all covered with pencil lead. And you'll see I didn't cover the whole thing, but I just wanted to make sure I got the letters good and covered. So I'm going to take it face down on my canvas, and I want to kind of center it on there. And I'm going to take either your pencil or even a pen or anything sharp, and I'm just going to press pretty hard on there, and I'm outlining the letters. I'm not going to color them in because I'm going to color them in with my permanent marker. So we're going to take a little break while I finish this up, and we'll be right back. Okay, you can see from my canvas here, this is how the letters came out when I traced them with the paper and the pencil and the lead, and I started coloring them in with my Sharpie marker. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that. And before we go on to the next step, you will need to wait a few minutes to let your ink actually dry on the canvas. So while I'm waiting for my ink to dry, I'm going to show you how to tear your tissue paper into pieces, which I did ahead of time, but you can do whenever you want. You could be doing that while you're waiting for your ink to dry. So I've got it all colored in with my marker. I'm going to set that aside. And a little more about the tissue paper. You can actually buy tissue paper for this type of art project. It's called bleeding tissue paper. I didn't see that at Michael's. You might have to order it. But I have torn my tissue paper. I've got 3 colors into just random pieces. So I started with strips because I was making kits, so I cut it into strips. If you want to start with your whole piece of tissue paper and just start tearing pieces off, that's perfectly fine. But I did not want any straight lines on my pieces. So I tore a piece off, and then I started picking the edges off so I don't have straight lines. I just have a random shape of tissue paper. And if you do happen to get a different kind of tissue paper, or you do get the bleeding tissue paper, you might want to wear gloves when you're handling it because it can stain your fingers. Also, I noticed with this brand of tissue paper, the light colors were very light. The yellow was very light colored, and the dark colors were very dark. So what I'm going to do, I haven't used these colors before. I'm going to do a little test before I decide how long I want to leave that on my canvas. How dark, the longer you leave your tissue paper on your canvas, the darker the colors are going to be. So I'm going to start with, I did mine one color at a time. You can start from one corner and do whatever you want, go to the other corner. I started with one color first and put it around. So I just want to get, I'm using a sponge brush and I'm going to use a tapping motion. I don't want to do this because I found that tore my tissue paper. So I'm just going to get my canvas wet, not real soaking wet. I'm going to stick my tissue paper on there and then I'm just going to tap, tap, tap. And since I've never used this tissue paper before, I'm just going to lift it up, this color, and see how dark that is. That's pretty dark, so I might just pick that up right now and take that off. I really don't want it darker than that. So I am just randomly putting my purples across the canvas here. And then I'm probably going to do some blues next. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and pull those up. Now, if you like the really dark colors, you know, go ahead and leave it on longer. It would probably get a little darker than that. I noticed the red got really dark. I did do a project with the red. And then I'm going to put some blue on here and get a bigger piece. And I'm going to overlap on my purple here. I want to go all the way to the edge of the canvas. That one didn't quite make it. I tore that piece. It doesn't matter because I'm just going to overlap it with something else. Okay, let's see what the blue does. It's all an experiment, like I said. Now that's very light, so I think I'm going to leave the blue on longer. Like I said, you want to get it wet. You don't need it soaking wet. If it tears, it's no big deal. You can just cover it with another piece. Okay, let's see what the orange does. It seems to be a very light color. So I'm probably going to leave that on a while. So in a few minutes we'll come back and I'll have this all covered with tissue paper. Okay, I've got my canvas covered with my tissue paper and I let it sit for about 5 minutes. Like I said, depends on how dark you want your colors. So I'm going to start peeling this off. And I did find myself making a little bit of a mess, so I put some paper towels under my canvas here. And you might want to wear gloves if I'm not having any trouble really with, except maybe that purple a little, staining my fingers. So I'm just going to rub it off here. And you could put this in a frame, or what I did was I just put it on a little stand. Still a little wet. I'm going to take my paper towel here and brush it off. There you go. We finished your tissue paper art. See you next time. Huron County Community